We're on to episode 85, and we're also off to the land down under, and it's been quite some time since we've been there, so let's talk about one of the most iconic animals to the continent, the koala. And I'll be honest, if you really like koalas, I've got some bad news for you, because there's going to be a lot of koala slander in this show tonight. But let's start with the basics, shall we? Koalas can be found on the eastern side of Australia in the provinces that actually have names, like Queensland, New South Wales, and Victoria. They were also, however, introduced to South Australia. Real creative. But the name of the animal itself is a myriad of typos and misunderstandings. Koala comes from the Darug word gula, which means no drink or unnecessary to drink. Which fits because they're pretty renowned for not drinking straight water. But the original transcription of the name was spelled with two O's, so like this. But someone misread the second O as an A, so now it became koala. And the Australian accent changed the G to a K because it was easier for them. So now we have koala. Now, you've probably heard it called a koala bear, and that actually comes from its scientific name, Phascolarctos cinereus, which essentially means ash-colored pouch bear. It's not actually a bear, obviously, but its body is kind of bear-ish. Now, when it comes to the evolutionary history, we have a pretty short story. Their ancient ancestor was most likely on what is now Australia, that was at the time still attached to Antarctica 96 million years ago. Its closest living relative is actually the wombat, but closest is kind of a stretch, as the line that would become koalas was most likely separated 25 million years ago. Now, we know of an extinct species known as the river-slay rainforest koala that essentially looked like a middle evolution between the wombat and the koala, though interestingly enough it was lighter than both, only being 7.7 pounds, while the koala, for reference, are roughly 30 to 33 pounds. And that's about it. After its evolution, it just sort of stuck the way it was, obviously becoming more arboreal and being able to, exist the way it does now, but for the most part, not much to say about it. As for culture, there's two main cultural influences the koala has: the divine gift to the Aboriginal people of Australia, and plushie. And let's start with the more respectable view, that of the local Aboriginals of the land down under. Many different tribes had many different interpretations of the animal, but most of them have nothing but praise coming from their tongues. For instance, the Darawal people of New South Wales have a legend of the koala being responsible for rowing humanity to the continent. Yes, rowing, like in a boat. Okay, we're just going to let that go and not disrespect others. One other legend from other tribes consists of killing a koala and using its intestines to create a bridge to other parts of the world. Alright, I think I have to look more into their mythology because they go hard. And on a less glory and quite honestly insane note, the Bidjara, I don't know how they pronounce it in their language. I'm going to go with Bidjara because it was English speakers that probably wrote this down. The Bidjara-speaking people of Queensland and Victoria say that koalas had brought trees to the arid lands. So, obviously, there's a lot of very deep spiritual significance to the animal. In the other corner, we have the influence you're probably more aware of, the teddy bear level of fame that most likely started after the Second World War, when more cultures from around the world became familiar with Australia. While kangaroos are probably the most famous animal of Oz, the koala is a strong rival. As a matter of fact, seeing a koala is often seen as a major goal when visiting Australia. As a matter of fact, in 1997, 75% of all tourists from Europe and Japan say that their number one goal is to see a koala. And to the credit of the Australian government, they've absolutely leaned into it, as it is tradition for world leaders to take a photo with the animal when visiting the island. This includes leaders like Queen Elizabeth II, Pope John Paul II, Crown Empress Masako, yeah, I didn't realize Japan's allowed an emperor either, Bill Clinton, Mikhail Gorbachev, Barack Obama, Nelson Mandela, and even Vladimir Putin. Yeah, that one. Australia also took a page out of China's book and used them as diplomatic tools, kind of like how the middle country uses pandas, sending off to zoos in good faith and, kind thoughts. Now, if you would like to end this episode with a lovely interpretation of the drop bear, I recommend getting off Mr. Bones' wild ride now, because it is time to talk mad shit. Because koalas, evolutionarily, fucking suck. I'm sorry, but they are just the worst. Koalas, as we all know, essentially only eat eucalyptus. Eucalyptus has no nutritional value, it is straight up toxic. It's so bad, koalas literally eat dirt to get the proper nutrients. Even with this supplementation, there's such a low amount of energy that comes from this diet that they can sleep up to 20 hours a day. And hell, I thought I was a lazy bastard if I slept for an extra 2. And the reason they can eat eucalyptus despite being poisonous is because they have a special microbiota in their gut that processes this toxin. Here's the catch though. They aren't born with it. So, you may be curious. How do baby koalas get these microbes? Simple. They literally eat their own mother's backdoor business. Absolutely disgusting. And to be honest, all this incestuous fecal-to-face feasting is probably why koalas are riddled with STDs. Yeah, some of you may be aware of the vast majority of wild koalas having chlamydia, but that's not the only disease they have that we as humans associate with sex, as they are also well known to have kids. And I don't mean Joey's, I'm referring to koala immunodeficiency syndrome. AIDS. The koalas have AIDS. And to round all of this off, they are extremely susceptible to cancers, with 42% of all koalas in US zoos having some form of cancer. How these weird tree wombats haven't been eradicated by natural selection, I have no idea. But with that, I believe we're done talking about these disgusting creatures that have a much more pleasant picture than existence. So, if you enjoyed the video, please leave a like, share, and subscribe. And, well, I hope my slander of the animal doesn't negatively put your idea of it. They deserve to live just like all other creatures. But, until next time, go outside, touch grass, hug your love, and drink water, and bye-bye.